women's pay equal. Along with that, in that same bill, it would make women and men to be able to be, drafted evenly for the military, which is fair by all rights, and makes women and men equal in all rights and ranks, which is always fair and always right and proper, which is cool. For any and all to be equal. Where are we at? Immigration. So, immigration is a huge issue now for any and all, not just Hispanic immigration, but immigration coming from China or anywhere you're coming from in America. So, Subsidized Farming Act, the food allowance, this has a lot to do with that because most of those jobs are, jobs that immigrants are taking and handling, very well in construction and things of that sort, which is cool. And we're great to have them on board with that because, immigrants come over here and they get the job done and do what they're supposed to. We're trying to ease that transition and make that transition work, for any and every person or persons that want to come here, and live the American dream or be a productive member of society. We'll always take those, and we'll always be open and welcome to those. America being that melting pot. Foreign aid. What we did is we cut off foreign aid for my presidential term in order to focus on the foreigners that are here in America or coming here to America. We take that aid and we apply it, to those that are coming inbound, just to make sure their transition is working. So if you're not getting treated, well, you can apply to come to America, and you're getting taken care of here, rather than taking our foreign aid and dispersing it amongst the world. I think it's really important that we focus on ourselves back home for my time being, or for the time being. So inbound lifestyle assistance, we do pay some assistance and help them, get into a place or get into a state or a job where they can thrive or be successful. Having a job here is super important for that Immigration Act and any Immigration Act, because if you don't have a job here, you're probably doing something that you're not supposed to, to stay here to make ends meet, or any of that sort of thing. It just knocks out any implications or assumptions or any time for you to do something, in the wrong nature, in the nature of the wrong. So we get you set up with jobs and stuff like that. So inbound lifestyle assistance is important. The Hispanic Sanctuary Act. So this gives certain cities that you can go to, cities that are marked as sanctuary cities. This allows any immigrant to go to one of those cities and receive these acts and compensations and laws applied to thrive and be successful. So we can get you a license, documentation, and a job saying that, hey, you're here, trying to get that green card. You're working to get your green card. So you're basically putting the immigrants in a situation where they can be successful and stay on their P's and Q's to prove themselves, or to become an American citizen. This just makes that transition a lot easier. So those sanctuary cities are available. They'll be listed as so in that act when it is finished and typed. Where are we at? Immigration Laborers Act. So that is getting them, to work and getting them good jobs. It allows them to work. Most of the time you need a visa here to work. So getting to one of those sanctuary cities where you can work or you can be a laborer, skilled or unskilled, however you may fall, whatever your skills rank, it gets you, in a positive place where you can be successful. So that's immigration. What do we do? Education, economy, gay women's rights, military, prison reform. So this is to help that transition and things in there go a little bit smoother. With prison reform, I'm going to start with Section X, housing. So along with that real estate market, which is it's going to need a facelift and a push in a second. Section X gives people that are getting out of prison, age 45, 50 and up, the right to housing. It's hard to find housing once you get out of a situation like that, whether your situation is whatever your situation is. I believe that it's fair to say you did your time. So you should be able to, come out and be a productive member of society without having to go back to the things you knew before you did your time to learn your lesson. So this would let of-aged citizens, convicts or business, whatever they want to call themselves. It lets them come out and get housing and lets housing be available, much like your Section 8. We call this Section X, to get them that housing, to get them in a better state. Cell Segregation Act. The racial indifference is noted. They say it's all ran from the inside, for lack of a better quote. What this is, this unsegregates the way cells are. Hate to put this in like Hollywood terms, but Remember the Titans is the best way I can put this. You'd have to pick a roommate, of a different ethnicity, which is super important. To get that ran on the outside and the inside. If that can change, the rest of these bills will fall in line. And I put this all as one bill, so it all has to be taken in the context of the same bill. The Voting Rights Act, Voice Act, Voting Rights Voice Act. Convicts want to vote. We'll take your vote as 1/3. So you put three votes together, and it'll equal one vote. I think it's fair and just for that voice to be heard. Even though you lost some privileges as a full vote, we give you a chance to have your voice heard because you're asking for it to be heard, and that right to vote should never be taken away. Where am I at? Body cameras. We make sure that body cameras are worn at all time as part of the uniform for all. If somebody feels like their rights are being violated or anything like that, we make sure that's taken out because it's all seen. So they can't say something went wrong if it went wrong, or didn't go wrong if it didn't go wrong. It's all seen and heard at all times, which is super important for the legal system to have that tool in any aspect of the law. Where am I at? Officer enlistment. So a part of basic training for the military should be getting them ready, for life after the military automatically. To be a cop, you have to go to school for like 4 to 6 months. Then you can go ahead and get your badge. So if we automatically do that with, officers, it gives them the availability to jobs after the military because they're always looking for police officers. So this just automatically transitions them into a job, as a public defender or a public servant. Which is super important. Monitored Obama phones. I see people sneak phones into prison all the time. I've seen it in documentaries and I've seen it actually before in person. Them take phones in there all the time. So we go ahead and just give them that phone, but it'll be monitored, at all times. So if they're making phone calls or doing something they aren't supposed to do, we'll be able to get a hold of it right away. We'll know exactly who they're calling and who they're talking to, and be able to handle it not only from the inside but from the outside also. So it kind of ties into our favor, but it gives them some freedom, to be able to talk to somebody as a coping mechanism, being cooped up. And finally, this is part of the bill. As marijuana becomes legalized, to buy it in a carton form like a cigarette, it's going to be super important aspect to get that to the guys so they can sit and think about the things that are really going on and how they carry themselves henceforward. So it's super important to have that. Innovation. I'm going to do the middle class last. So global environment. This bill is going to be water restoration plan and funding. So now we're just working on the funding because the plan is already in play. I've engineered my own mechanisms, which is probably going to be government contracted here in the USA. To restore and make salt water and any type of water you find, fresh water, through a scientific process that I've patented myself using different devices, which is super important. So it's just now getting the funding for that. Space, political space preparation. You see Trump did that already with the Space Force. I wrote this like 2 years ago, excuse me, just to have that ready. So that's already being taken care of. Pure Michigan Environment Act, which is keeping our national reserves and our air clean. Not cutting down so many forests. If you cut down a tree, you got to plant one, which is super important. To keep the air clean and to keep our planet thriving. The Alternative Energy Act. Alternative energy. So solar panels, stuff of that nature, magnetic electricity, switching over to that, to preserve Mother Earth for a better stay and a better future is super important as we see the science behind all the things that are happening and all the catastrophic events that are happening, in today's society, which is super important. Wildlife preservation break. So this gives breaks and tax breaks and funds different places for wildlife preservation. So if you have an animal or anything like that is endangered, or wildlife that that is thriving or is not thriving in that area, and you preserve land or preserve an area for it, we'll go ahead and cut you a tax break and make sure you're taken care of for that. This is all in the same global environment bill, which is super important. Animal rights of freedom. So you could take an animal and put it in the wild, but if it comes off the preservation or comes off that land, it is due to euthanization or to be adopted or anything like that. Gives animals a right to freedom, and I think it's super important for animal rights and animal rights activists, to have that in there, because it is important, because it is not just our Earth. So voices are being heard from every corner and every aspect of politics. Other bills that are in here are involving stem cells, which as science gets better and better, stem cells are being used, to create and preserve life, and super important to be able to get those out there. They're now being government contracted, so everything's getting looser, to be able to receive those stem cells and be able to do what you need to do scientifically with them, which is pretty awesome. I'm excited for it because one entity of my business does use this. So it's going to be awesome to get our hands on and create things with it. Opioids, it's a crisis. People being able to get their hands on opioids and stuff like that. So we're cracking down on that. I have not finished that bill yet. Transportation System Act, getting ready for that. Have not finished that bill yet. I run an entity which makes it so cars are driverless, so we're getting ready for that aspect of society all across the United States, which is going to be awesome. Terrorist Timing Act, I actually forgot what I came up with for that one, so I got to rewrite that one, make sure that one's ready to go. Lastly, we did the middle and low class. So working man's reward. This is super important. This allows for, the construction worker, the man who works 40, 50 hours to have a right to let their body wind down. As Americans, we build, we work hard, and we go home and relax. This gives allowance to them for food and the time that they work so they can feed their family. It gives them a right to vacation pay and time to take vacations after jobs or a certain amount of hours have been logged, to take care of their family and to do things with their family. So this is automatically in that middle to low class bill to take care of our working men and women here in America. Bankruptcy and housing rescue policy. So this goes with that housing clause I talked about earlier with the vouchers. So it gets those homeless personnel, in the state or in the process of getting housing all across the United States for those lower income houses or foreclosed or condemned houses that could be like rebuilt or restored. Usually you can go in the city and fill out that paperwork and get a condemned or foreclosed house without much difficulty or much money. So at a low price, but this automatically, puts them in the stay in place to be able to get a hold of housing at an affordable rate. Also, putting that in the database and paperwork, adds to that real estate facelift to the economy, which is awesome. So that's going to be in that bill too. Lifestyle lift clause. So that's your trickle up economics. Once again, putting the money into the lower middle class for it to go to the manufacturers and stuff like that, and then come to one second, and then for it to go to the low class and then go to the middle class, to reach having to go from the low class to the middle class, all the way to the manufacturers and distributors, and people who own businesses, small businesses and bigger entities, all the way back up to the government, which is taxed on all levels, giving payback to the government, putting money back into the economy. And then when it reaches the economy, the money flows, and sticks with the economy. So it keeps the economy flowing, in the same chain and circle. So that's much like that stimulus bill that's passed, which can be done and will be done pretty soon. Reparations. So this is huge. So not to discriminate, by law you cannot discriminate for age, religion, sex, ethnicity, race, anything like that. These reparations are being asked for from the African American group, but it has to be able to be accessible by all groups that fit the measure, which is super important. So with the reparations, a whole bill is written down. You can check my Instagram, it is on there. Twitter, it is on there. And I will release it again. So this gives them access to schooling for the youth. So much like that FAFSA and that free tuitions, which is already taken care of in the last bill. Most of these reparations are already taken care of. This gives them food allowance, which is already taken care of, and health insurance, which the Obamacare bill kind of took care of, but this gives them the good health insurance that they need. For reasons African Americans are more, what's the word I'm looking for? African Americans have a higher rate of, heart disease and illnesses and health problems, than any other race, because of the treatment of African Americans back at that time, which the reparations are for. The segregation of schooling led unequal balance between Caucasians and African Americans, which left an unfair indifference in education. So it catches them up there and gives them the accessibility to schooling. Food allowance, you make sure you're getting fed, and everybody's getting fed, because nobody should go hungry in any economical situation, because there's a surplus of food here in America. We give food away that is misshapen and stuff like that to many different places. So nobody should ever go hungry. So that food allowance should be accessible. I know when I first made mention of a food allowance, they doubled the fruits and vegetables on WIC thereafter, visiting city halls and stuff like that. So it got taken care of pretty quickly, or they implemented a bill to help it out pretty quickly, which is pretty cool to see. And the debt relief, one-time debt relief. So this is the age 25, 26, with dependent. So you can restart your debt one time in order to be able to afford that housing or afford the land that you want, or afford, it takes you out of a bad situation so you can consciously know what you're doing. And so you're able to afford the things that you need to be successful. So you only get this clause one time. It kind of happens anyways. If you know anything about credit, it restarts or everything falls off your credit every 7 years. So it happens, if you know the system or the process. But this goes ahead and knocks it out and takes care of it for everybody. So I do it in the reparations clause. And these are things that are already taken care of and can be taken care of. So if you just put it into the reparations bill, it is taken care of. So which group or which income or socioeconomical class will give this to will be typed out in this bill when I finish this bill, but that is not clear yet, but it will be taken care of. Reparations. 10 minutes on this video. Work week advancement. So this gives the right to a 4-day work week or a 4-day week, giving a day in between or a day in there, to go ahead and go to the doctors and get checked out or take care of any business that you have for yourself. So in turn, it would reward businesses for taking a 4-day work week, which would be 10-hour shifts, which sounds bad, but it really isn't. It's no harder than your regular 8 or your 9 to 5. So you have time or a day in between during the weekday, to go get your mail taken care of, or to go get something that would only be open on the weekdays taken care of. So it's to look out for, the working class, so they can get their business handled and take care of too on a day-to-day. Super important, cool, and it will ease the transition of the middle class to make sure everybody's healthy, fit, and have what they need. The family food allowance. So this is already taken care of with WIC. If you can't afford to eat or feed somebody, the government, you can go ahead and ask for that assistance, the family food allowance, which is also given to workers, men, comps, so the working class, to be able to feed their families, so you can spend your money elsewhere or take care of things elsewhere besides food, which there's a surplus of once again here in America. Self-help support. This is all in the same bill for the middle class. So if you know you're going through something, or you're going to go through something, whether that be mental health, self-help, I guess, if you're going through, rehab or something like that, this gives it or makes it, if you sign to it and adhere to it, it makes it so they take care of you during the time that you're spent, getting yourself to where you need to be. Mentally or physically. It's super important for us to get these Americans, along with that opioid crisis, to get these Americans where they should be mentally and physically. If you want to be clean, clear, you deserve the right to be clean and clear. I think it's super important to take care of those who are working hard and doing their due diligence. And I think it's super important to give equal opportunity to those Americans, whether they're going through a hard time or whether they're doing great. It's super important to take care, of the low and middle class, and in all aspects, it's super important. And faction system safety. So this is probably one of the biggest problems I've seen in the middle class, which is also called the Cleopatra cycle. The biggest problem I've ever seen in the middle class ever is the misuse of power amongst those of high ranks or amongst those who control the masses. Whether it's controlling, blackmailing, all sorts of horrible situations I've seen with people with powers where it comes to CEO, where they want to stay on top, so they do things that are unjust or unreasonable to make those people and everybody stay under them, which isn't cool by any means, and it needs to be dealt with. For those people, those smart people or educated people to be able to thrive and shine on top, and make it to the upper echelons. This often caps the middle class and makes it so you can't get out of the middle class, which is ridiculous, and it's a huge problem that needs to be taken care of. So for faction system safety, we are going to go ahead and implement an HR bill. HR bill reads, faction system safety clause. Any type of forced, threatened, or implied, verbal or non-verbal, control, perjury, blackmail of any kind, when proven and provided, used as power on a greater scale, hold on, I can't read my fucking handwriting. Faction system safety clause, HR bill. Any type of forced, threatened, implied, verbal or non-verbal, control, perjury, blackmail of any kind, when proven or provided, used as a power on a greater scale, hinders a person's mental health, well-being, or right to this pursuit of happiness, grants amnesty of damage or injury, and a right and grounds to monetary damages, and is punishable in this and all courts of a sentence of 5 to 10 years as a felony. Also grants a personal protection order in all matters to the victim, in all matters of law to the victim. So this is also the power of the masses and the high rank is not to be used for unjust reasons or reasoning. This is to give fair and equal opportunity to all to advance in safe and honest rights to liberty and justice. So like I said, this is a huge problem in America, and it's annoying. I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy how often it happens. I've seen it myself. I've seen a million people go through it myself. And I think it's honestly incorrect and unfair. I've seen people get capped off. Some of the most brilliant people in the world get capped off due to unjust and unequal use of power, high rank, or control, or however it states, however the HR bill states. So to have that in there will knock out a lot of problem in the middle class, like a lot of problem in the middle class. Once again, I'm going to read this HR bill just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Faction System Safety Clause, HR bill number blank. Any type of forced, threatened, or implied, verbal or nonverbal, control, perjury, or blackmail of any kind when proven or provided, used as a power on a greater scale, hinders a person's mental health, well-being, or right to the pursuit of happiness, grants amnesty of damages and injury, and a right and grounds to monetary damages, and is punishable in this and all courts to a sentence of 5 to 10 years as a felony. Also grants a personal protection order to the victim in all matters of the law. Super important. This will literally wipe out the whole middle class. Like literally, like it will clean the whole middle class. From a business aspect, from a control aspect, from every aspect, and any aspect and any reason, it will literally control the middle class. That is literally all. That's all. That's all. That's literally all. That's literally everything. So all these bills are literally getting taken care of now. I've passed them all up. This video will be posted. Both of them will be posted tonight. So if you're seeing it, all these laws will be, put to the test over the next 8 years, which is pretty cool. So by the time, if I run, which I really don't want to, like I'm trying to retire after this bunch of laws gets done, so I don't have to do anything. I just sit back in my house and crib and chill out, which is about to be awesome. I can't wait for that. So yeah, that's about it. So I only run if like I have to. Literally if I have to. Hopefully I don't, because I don't want to. I really don't want to. So hopefully you can take care of yourselves. Peace!